just a couple of pieces of housekeeping real quick. If you need to use the restroom, it's just right through this door, ladies and the men's on the far end. As a request from our store manager here, Mr. Joe Franks, do not go through those other doors or the alarm will go off, and that will be quite a big event there, so let's not do that. Ms. Rachel Painter is going to kick us off here with succession planning for your farm. We're going to unmute, just so you guys know, it's actually Facebook Live on the Cave Facebook page, as well as being streamed into the Coffee County Extension Office, I think, right? So, and then Rachel, it's all yours. All right, you're live.
Perfect. Thank you, Matthew, and thank you all for coming. I know we've got a larger crowd than we thought we did, so thanks for eating light a little bit. And we're excited that you were here. If you are not familiar with Extension, which hopefully you are, then just a little second. I know Matthew introduced himself as well as the other agents here, but if you are not from Franklin County, your agent, even if they're not here, are here to serve you. So I know we got some more county producers here as well. And a little bit of my background, I was an ag agent like these guys here for 5 years before becoming first a marketing specialist and now in my current role as a farm management specialist. So I am your farm management specialist if you're here tonight. I serve 12 counties, and I'll show you a map of those here in a second. But we are excited that you are here for Farmland Legacy. Now, a little bit about that too, and I'll show you some more information where you can find that online here in a second. But I want to make sure that you do have a book here in front of you, this workbook, and these are very full of information. So it's going to take you quite some time to read through that. And if you do need a book, please just raise your hand, I'll get you one. This entire workbook is also online, so if you have someone that's not here tonight, maybe they even live in another state, and they are interested in accessing that workbook, they can access that entire booklet online. And some of the forms at the very back are fillable PDFs. So if you wanted to download that, fill out those forms, use those as you go meet with your own lawyer, then you can do that. So that's the book. And I got to press on here to get this started. Or I have to turn it on. I don't know. I don't know what happened. There we went. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, we just needed Matthew to walk and have his presence here. So again, a little bit about the Manage program. If you're not familiar with that, we have farm management specialists, like myself, scattered throughout the state. We are based in county extension offices, which means that we are in the extension office with agents every day. And we come alongside those agents to help you in learning how to run your farm like a business, because it should be a business, right? Unless you have a very expensive hobby, then you should be operating your farm as a business. Now, again, we have farm management specialists across the state. I'm in this purple area down here, and we have, again, other folks across the state. We typically like to specialize in certain topics, and I love farm transition planning. This has impacted my family as well, and I also love to help beginning farmers. So again, these other ones specialize in other things. One specializes in row crops, one in dairy, one in beef cattle. So if you had some kind of specific question on another topic, and that was not me that would come and help you, then we would pull them in to help as well. Now again, how do we help you? We help you look at your financial statements if you have them. If you don't have them, we help you develop them. So if you need a balance sheet, if you need to learn how to turn in your taxes, we are not accountants. We will not help you file your taxes. We'll help you understand your tax burdens and how you can hopefully lessen those. We can help you look at analyzing any kind of potential equipment purchases or land purchases with a program called FinTech. A lot of loan officers will use that program as well. And then again, if you're looking at changing the scope of your enterprise, maybe you're looking at adding a different type of enterprise to your operation. Maybe you're looking at selling off the farm, right? That's something we don't want to talk about, but that's what we're here to discuss tonight, is how you can be planning for the future, whatever that might look like. Again, how do we do that? number one that we're always going to stress is record keeping. So I really can't help you if you don't have any records to go off of, unless you're just getting started and we're going to develop a record-keeping system that you can start keeping records in so that we can help you make better decisions in the future using those records. So if you don't have a record-keeping system, I would love to meet with you. We really want to make sure that you have a way to keep up with records, and then that we have a way to look at those records to make decisions. So again, we want to help you get set up in some kind of record-keeping system, whether that is just an Excel sheet that we build with you, or that is pencil and paper that hopefully you actually go back and look at, or if that is something like Quicken or QuickBooks. So there's tons of other record-keeping systems out there. I'm happy to help you look at those. We do sit down and help you set that up. We don't help you keep up with your records week by week, right? I can't do that. I'm one person. But I can help you get started in a system. Then again, after you have some records, we can look at some farm financial planning so we can help you develop a farm business plan. Now, if you've ever gone after a loan or funding from the government, then you know that they're going to be at least asking for sections of a written farm business plan. So I help farmers write business plans literally every day pretty much, or I review them for them. So please let me know if you're interested in writing a farm business plan. And then next, what do? Things like this. So educational trainings. We go around, talk about different topics that have to do with farm financials. So Farming Fundamentals is the program that is for beginning farmers. If you are new to agriculture, which is not most of the people in the room, but if you are new to agriculture, then Farming Fundamentals is an online program that you can take, and it is videos along with some publications that walks you through starting a farm business. After that is Master Farm Manager, and I see some familiar faces in the room from that program. And in Coffee County, our friends are finishing up their 4-week Master Farm Manager program. So that Master Farm Manager program can help you qualify for some funding through the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, as many of you know. And again, that program is a great opportunity to learn more about managing your farm from a business standpoint. Farmland Legacy is what you were at tonight, so succession planning for your farm. And then we also, of course, go to other extension and ag-research events across the state. If you're not familiar with our ag-research stations, there's some all across the state. There's 12 different farms, and that is where they do production agriculture research trials and help you learn more about implementing certain practices on your farm. So I hope you'll visit one of those. All right, so again, this booklet is all online. There's some other resources there as well on this website, so you can just go to farmlandlegacy.tennessee.edu, all spelled out. And that is where you can access this booklet. All right, we have to give a disclaimer because we work for the University of Tennessee. So this disclaimer is basically saying that nothing that I say here tonight should be considered legal advice because I am not a lawyer and I cannot give such. I'm also not an accountant, so I can't give you any tax advice. And any of our speakers that are here tonight, we thank them for their time. They are volunteering their time and services, so we are not paying them to be here tonight, and neither are you. So, therefore, they should be not considered an endorsement, promotion of them, or their services that they can offer, but we are certainly thankful and grateful that they are here.
We thought we were getting paid.
Well, maybe in food. I don't know. Yeah. All right. So, again, this booklet is online. If you're interested in the backstory about why this became to be, you can read this long story on the website as well. Basically, back in 2010, the governor at the time, Phil Bredesen, set up a team to develop some resources for farmers. So this isn't a new topic. Of course, people interested in succession planning, passing the farm on to the next generation, has always been a concern for farmers, and it should be, right? That's why you're here tonight. And again, at that time, the governor saw it as an issue that was affecting a lot of Tennessee producers, and so they formed a group, a partnership of the university along with other partners that came together to write this book. Okay, so a lot of information went into writing this book. Again, you can read the full story there if you're interested. Again, on that website, you can click the Resources tab, and you can see here are some of those. There's more, but some of these include some leasing publications, some lease example agreements, and then some more information about how to work with an attorney, how to form a power of attorney, and then personal information that you should take to that meeting. At the back of this workbook, again, there's other documents that you might want to use. Okay. So, you're already here tonight. Obviously, you know that this is an important topic that you are interested in. You want more information about passing down the farm. Now, why do we do that? To ensure continuity and success of the farm, right? So that's the definition of why we care about successful transition planning. Now, if we all know that we should care about that, why do only 3 out of 10 actually succeed in that? Right? So if we think about other businesses outside of agriculture, if we thought about the co-op, they probably have a succession plan in place, and that's a business, right? So we really want to stop and think about our farm as a business, because it is. So when we think about a business, if we held any other kind of business, if we were the owner of any other kind of business besides the farm, we would be thinking about, well, what's going to happen to this if something happens to me? Or who's going to be in charge of this? Who am I passing this down to? We'd probably be asking our kids, do you want to run the co-op? Right? If you were the owner, do you want to run the co-op? They'd be like, yeah, Dad. Right? Or, no, I want to go be a lawyer. Okay? So we really want to think about, how can I make sure that this is successful, and not because of a lack of planning on my part. So that's why you're here. But of course, life gets in the way, right? It's not easy to have these conversations. I know that. I'm there at a lot of them, I promise. I know these aren't easy. So when we think about having these conversations, we're like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. They're in a bad mood today. Or we'll be thinking about, oh, that's like a worst case scenario. I'm healthy. I just went to the doctor. They said I was all good. Right? So we think about, oh, I'll just put that off. Again, you run a farm, so there are urgent tasks to be completed every single day. I know. Any kind of business, there's going to be an urgent task, but there's always going to be something that needs to be done. I put this guy blowing out equipment, right? There's always going to be something that's done right now. Well, this needs to happen so I can do this tomorrow. We want to think about writing your succession plan in the same way. We want to think about setting up the success of the farm in the same way as any other urgent task. So I want you to really start thinking about succession planning as the most urgent task on your plate. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know that. Okay, so why would we plan, and how do we plan? So planning for a successful farm transition, how would we go about that? Number one, we really want to consider the goals for ourselves. So what is my goal if I'm the current owner? And we want to think about the next generation in line. What are their goals? Any further than that generation, unless they're like old enough to really take it over, they're already old enough and mature enough to take something over like that, then they really shouldn't be considered. So we really only want to be thinking about the next generation, because who knows what's going to happen by the time it's the next person in line. So unless you're skipping a generation, then that next generation in line should really be the only generation that you're concerned about as far as talking to them about their goals for the operation. So again, if you're the owner, talk to the next generation in line, because too much can change by the time the grandkids grow up and decide that they want to take over the farm. Next, we really want to plan this out and try to think ahead so that we can hopefully prevent any family disputes. So a lot of folks think, oh, I'm not going to put anything in place, and that way if something happens to me, the kids, they can just deal with that themselves. We got some people laughing because they know how that goes. It don't go very good, right? So we really want to start thinking about this, because if you can handle it yourself and you can put a plan in place and communicate and talk about this, we can really prevent a lot more of these misunderstandings and disputes between families that break them apart a lot more by doing it that way than just letting the kids figure it out. Because they're already going through an emotional state because something happened to you. They're already trying to figure out what's going on. Where is everything? What do we do? Right? We don't want them also trying to figure out what happens to the family business when they're thinking about what just happened to my parent. Next, we want to think about the financial health of the farm. So if we plan for the future, we can plan for taxes and legal fees, and we can plan for how to make sure that there's even something to pass on, right? Again, reduce tax burdens and avoid legal complications. So these are all the reasons that you should be considering. I hope that you are. I think that you are. So how would we go about that? Well, it is hard, but we can simplify it down into 4 steps that you're going to keep repeating over and over. So that's why these have circles. So we first want to take stock of your estate. That's what I'll talk about first. Then we want to seek professional advice. Now, who do I mean by that? A lawyer, an accountant, a financial advisor, your extension agent, your farm management specialist, someone outside of your family that can give you unbiased information. We want to then communicate, and then we want to develop a transition plan. And again, all of these things are always ever evolving. We should always be going back to them, updating them when anything changes. So what does taking stock of your estate mean? It means looking at all of your resources, okay, to take consideration of all of your assets and your liabilities so that you can look at your financial position, okay? So if you have your balance sheet every year, if you have your profit and loss statement, right? If you are looking at those every year, year after year, you can see changes. And hopefully with those changes, you can start to see patterns. And then you can also look at, well, this is all I have. This is my assets. These are my liabilities. What is my net worth? How can I figure out if I even have something to pass on? Well, if it's not looking too good, maybe I need to be meeting with somebody, figuring out what to do, what changes to make. So that's why we really want to take stock of your estate, not only so that you can make better financial decisions, but so that you can plan for the future of that operation as well. Again, why do we do this? We want to clarify, number one, how you want to transfer your property. So are you looking to transfer your property to one heir? Do you have multiple kids? Are you trying to look at, one of them is on the farm, some others have moved away, maybe one of the kids is there on the farm helping run the operation and they actually own half the equipment, right? So we really want to look at what are your assets, what are your kids' assets, how are we transferring ownership of any of those, and then we want to look at your goals. Okay, do you really want this in agriculture for perpetuity? Are you interested in making sure that, one of these kids is able to run the farm, but the other one also has something to show that they're also your heir, but they're not getting the farm. So what else are they getting? Again, we also want to take stock of our estate so that when we go meet with any of these professionals, we have a list of all of those assets, because if they don't know that you have another farm in another county, they can't really give you great advice. So we need to go to them already prepared with a list of all of our assets, all of our liabilities, anything that we are trying to transfer ownership of. If they don't know you have it, they can't help you transfer ownership. Okay, so when do you do this? Hopefully often, right? Hopefully every year you're maybe making a balance sheet. Hopefully you're filing your taxes. So that's a great time to sit down and evaluate that. I said there's no time like the present, okay? So if you haven't been doing this before, you haven't taken stock of what you have, then maybe tonight start making a list. I don't know. But again, your accountant should have some of that information. We also want to take stock during your lifetime. So again, you might start thinking about like, oh, I have this property over here in this other state that this aunt that didn't have any heirs passed down to me. I want that to go to this other person. So that's separate than this farm operation, right? So we really want to make sure that we can get that information in an accurate form right now while you're alive to tell us about it, right? So if something happens to you, again, that's a worst case scenario, but it happens to all of us at some point. So we really want to take stock of our estate while you are there to give accurate information where you know where that information is, because again, if something happened to you, do your kids even know where those documents are? I promise you, not a lot of the time, they don't. So we really want to make sure that you have the ability to answer any questions about that. You have the ability to go and share those documents, share what those documents are, what is in those documents, and make sure, again, that your professionals that are working alongside you have all those details that they need as well. So again, how would I do that? Number one, I want you to make a list of all of your assets and all of your liabilities. Okay? Again, if that sounds confusing or overwhelming, I'm here to help. Number two, we want you to locate any legal documentation. So literally, where is it? Is it at the bank? Is it in a lockbox? Is it under your bed? Got that one sometimes. Hopefully not. Number three, we want you to establish your net worth. We want to make sure that there is something to pass on. We also want to make sure that there is enough money there to cover any legal fees or any issues should something come up, right? We also want to make sure that we can address any deficiencies. So if any information was hard to find, if you had to go find the key to some safe you had somewhere, if you didn't remember the code, whatever that was, let's make sure that it's easier to find next year when you look at this again. And also, written down somewhere where that information is so that whoever needs to find it in the future could find it if they needed to. Right? So if any information was hard to gather, if it was hard to find and locate, if there was any kind of discrepancies in record keeping, we want to address those. We want to make sure that everything is easy to locate and that it is correct. Now, what kind of records do we mean beyond that? That would be helpful and necessary in some cases for anyone that was taking over your operation. Number one, we need some financial records, right? So financial records that would be extremely helpful, if not necessary, for any of your heirs or anyone that would be taking it over. We have income and expense reports, okay? We have any kind of loan and mortgage documents. So if you're taking over a loan, you need to know who holds it, how do you pay it, what bank account does it come out of. We need to make sure that we have any insurance information, okay? So any kind of insurance information, even if that's just a document of who is the insurance agent, where are they located, how do we call them, how do we get a copy of this. Bank account information, tax returns, any employee payroll, even going back years. Okay, so if you had somebody working on your operation, years ago, then still good to keep up with that information in case anything were to ever happen. Production records. So we want to keep up with any kind of yields, any kind of planting schedules, harvest schedules. We want to look at any kind of livestock health records. We want to look at your breeding logs. Okay, so why is this information important? Well, number one, if somebody had to take over your operation and they aren't familiar with your planting schedule or when you spray this or that, right, then they would have a lot of questions. They don't know what you've been doing in the past. Or if anyone tried to, sue you, take legal action for some reason, well, no, I have records, here they are, this is what we sprayed on this date, this is what happened here, right? So that's good to protect yourself, but also if something happened to you, well, if you're gone and they have no record of what you've been doing, then anyone could claim something. And again, buildings and inventory list. It's also great to put the date that those were built or any kind of major infrastructure changes, right? If you're the only one that knows that this barn was built in, 1962, and your kids were born in 1990, well, let's write that down, right? That's a good place to start. We can also put in there, when was electricity added? When did this happen, right? If you had any kind of insurance claims on that property, we need to include that as well. So production records or inventory records, and then some family records. So what kind of information do you need on the family itself? Well, number one, any kind of wills, trusts, deeds, any kind of legal documents, right? Any kind of information about other property that you own outside of the farm itself. If you own some rental properties in town, and the daughter's getting those and the son's getting the farm, or the other way around, then, okay, well, let's make sure that we have some records of that as well, because we're going to have to appraise all of this and make sure that this is equal and even as well with the rest of the bank account. Next, any kind of leases or contracts. If you have a business plan, if you don't have a written business plan, I'm here to help. But any kind of past business plans, and then your succession plan itself is a great idea. Okay, so that's just a list of good ideas. All right, so now that we have those records in place, now we can do something. Because then I can start to analyze those. So I have to have records first, then I can start making decisions. So once I have those records, I want to start developing those financial statements that I need so I can make better decisions. I can form some financial ratios and make sure that my financial health is strong. I can make sure that I can go get a loan if I need to, or that my kids could go get a loan if they needed to. I can make sure that I can budget for the future. If I know that, dang it, corn prices are going to go, through the bottom. What am I going to do about that? Am I going to be able to pay this loan when it comes due? I don't know. Well, we can budget for the future. We can determine a break-even price. We can make sure with a cash flow statement that we can pay that loan if we need to. We can make sure that we can analyze the business by enterprise as well. If we have beef cattle and we have row crops and the daughter's over here growing strawberries, let's make sure that we can keep those records separate. How much of that fertilizer went to the strawberries? How much went to the corn? So that we can make sure that we're analyzing this by enterprise to make sure which ones are making money, which ones are not doing so hot. Maybe instead of strawberries, she needs to be growing something else. Or maybe the strawberries are doing better than the beef cattle. Not right now, but maybe in the future. Then we need to assess our risk, okay? And risk is everywhere in agriculture. You know that. But we really want to assess our financial risk. We want to assess our liability from an insurance standpoint, from how can we protect this moving to the next generation. That's when farmland is most vulnerable to anything, whenever it's changing hands. So we really want to think about how can I assess my risk, be aware of it, and hopefully mitigate it. All right, so that was taking stock of your estate. This is communication. This is my friend's baby. I don't have a baby. But this is all in chapter 2 of your book. So if you wanted to go and look further into this, if this is your really, pinch point, you start cringing up when you think about communication, please go read this entire chapter. So when we think about family communication, we really want to think about, I like steps if you can't tell. So we really want to think about how would I go about this. Number 1, we want to initiate dialogue. Okay? Starting that conversation is the hardest part, I promise. So we really want to initiate dialogue. We want to encourage open communication with all family members, not just the ones you want to talk to, not just the one that's easiest to talk to. Okay? All family members. And then we want to assess, okay, who is directly involved and who's indirectly involved. Again, if one son has moved off the farm and one is still living there, the one that's moved off still gets a say, still gets to be communicating with you about this. Even if you think they don't care, they might. We also want to think about how much do they get to care, right? So we still want to be having communication with them now. Then we want to think about identifying, not identifying. Identify goals, okay? So what are my goals? What are the next generation's goals? How can we make sure that we can express those in a respectful and considerate manner? Then we want to develop a shared plan, okay? So if you have these goals, they have these goals, how can we try to come together and develop a plan that hopefully meets everybody's needs, not wants, needs? And then next, how can we implement this plan and then reassess? Again, hopefully on a yearly basis. If something major changes, we might need to reassess then. When? when do we do this? Again, no time like the present. You should begin these discussions, hopefully, before there is a crisis when you have to have these discussions. So it's better to start now. Hopefully, no kind of health crisis has been happening. And again, you're in a much better state of mind to have those discussions when you're not also stressed out because Dad's in the hospital. And again, when should we do this? Again, when there's any major life changes. Or that's a great reason to bring it up, right? If the kids have had kids. Oh, maybe we should be talking about this. What's going to happen to the farm? They're living in the farmhouse now. What about the other kids? Okay. Any kind of marriage status change? So got married, got divorced. Any kind of retirement planning? So, if you're 82, maybe it's time to start thinking about retirement. I don't know. Alex, let's get go. All right. And again, he's like, no, that's not a joke. I'm here. Okay. How to have this family discussion. Ways to start this conversation. Because again, initiating dialogue is the hardest part most of the time. A lot of folks that I meet with just say, we don't have these kind of serious discussions. I don't even know how to bring it up. I promise you, I've had so many older men tell me that. Okay? I'm like, dude, just start. I mean, there's literally no magic answer. Okay? So how do we start this? Use this workshop. So a lot of folks that have talked about succession planning with their family, they say they went to some kind of workshop, they went to some kind of event, they heard some kind of speaker talk about this, and they said, hey, Dad, did you hear what they said tonight? Maybe we should talk about that. Or, from the other perspective, they say, hey, me and your dad went to this workshop, and they were talking about this. Now we've started talking to this lawyer. We should really talk to you about this at some point. When are you coming home? Yeah? Check that one. Okay. Use other families. Now, I don't like to harp on, using somebody's other hardships to be a reason to bring something up, but sometimes things happen for a reason, right? If something happened to the farmer down the road and now his kids are fighting over the farm, that's how my dad brings up some hard subjects. He's like, did you hear about so-and-so? I'm like, Daddy, quit talking about people, right? And he's like, no, I brought that up because we should talk about that. Yeah. So I know if he's talking about people, it's because he wants to talk to me about the same thing. Next, talk with your spouse. Okay, so again, you want to have that discussion with your spouse or anyone else that also currently holds ownership. And then you can use that conversation. So start there. Then use that conversation to say, hey, we were talking about this. Right? So again, I know that's the hardest part. Those sound very simple. Putting them into practice is a lot harder, I promise. Okay, when you have that family discussion, what do you want to do? Okay, location. We want to think about a neutral location. If you were always yelling at your daughter at the kitchen table because her shorts were too short, that ain't where to do it. Okay? She's already upset when she's at the kitchen table because she is thinking back to that, and that was not fun. So if you're having hard conversations somewhere where there's already been hard conversations, okay, hopefully she's grown up, and they're not that short. Okay? She's matured some. But that's not the place to do it. Okay? If there's already been hard conversations in that location, go somewhere else. I've heard of a family where they literally went and sat on the church steps. Now, why did they do that? Because they said they could keep their emotions in check. They weren't going to yell at each other. Right? So if you need to go sit at the church, do it. If you need to go sit at the Hardee's, do it. Okay? If you need to go sit somewhere out in the field on the tailgate, do it. Okay? So try to go somewhere where there's not already bad memories. There's not something, that's already happened there. Right? Again, the hospital is not the place to do this, if at all possible. So we really want to think through, where am I having this family discussion? So you've already initiated dialogue. Okay? And then you plan a family meeting to all discuss it together. Okay, you've already had individual discussions. Now you're discussing it as a whole family. So again, we want to set a time and date when everyone can be there. If somebody can't be there, we have to move it. That's going to be hard if you got 6 kids. But you're going to plan this out when everyone can be there. Again, even the ones that have moved off the farm, okay, if they say they don't care about this family discussion, they better not care, because their considerations aren't going into this discussion at that point. If they can't be there for this meeting, they better not care about anything from this farm. So we really want to think about making sure everyone can be there at a neutral location. Now, sometimes your lawyer can provide that, a meeting room, right? Even at some restaurants, you can book a meeting room for pretty cheap. So again, if you need to have this somewhere, if you think emotions might run high, really think about where is this going to take place. When you start that meeting, you really want to start with sharing why you care. Okay? That helps diffuse a lot of emotions. You say, I really care about this because I care about you. I really care about this because I want to make sure that this farm can be successful in the future. That's what I've worked for my whole life, and I really want to make sure that y'all can have that opportunity if you want it. Maybe you don't want it. I don't know. I really want to discuss this with you, though. Next, you want to share that desired outcome, right? So if you share, this is why I'm having this family meeting, I care about this. Now, what do you hope the desired outcome is? You hope that they can all share their goals, right? And then you hope to set some other meetings. You're not deciding everything right then and there. Okay? You're going to have other meetings. So we really want to make sure that you can end this meeting with some good family relationships. I want to make sure that we can start this conversation here today. We can plan some other future meetings to discuss some details. But here today, I just want to discuss all of our goals. Next, we want to acknowledge emotions. So emotions can be really diffused. I'm not a therapist, I promise. But emotions can be really diffused if you just acknowledge that they're there. Okay? So if you just say, hey, I know that this is really emotional, right? I know that anytime we've ever talked about the farm and the future of the farm and who's getting what, that's going to be emotional, right? Everybody has emotions tied to everything. So we really want to just acknowledge that this is emotional and that everybody should agree that, hey, if you're getting really emotional, we need to pause. Okay? Because the goal is that we can all leave here closer. All right? Again, I know that is serious because it is serious. It's your business and it's your family. Next, we want to identify everyone's roles. Okay, so what are their roles? What are their current roles in the farm? Are they involved in the farm? And what are their interests in the farm moving forward? Are they interested in living there? Are they interested in operating it? And their goals. What do they want the farm to look like? Is it currently a row crop operation and they want to keep doing that? We don't know. I mean, that's pretty investment heavy, so hopefully. But if not, are they more interested in exploring beef cattle? Right? They want nothing to do with that, but they are interested in the farm itself. Next, we're going to agree to hold future family meetings. Now, sometimes those family meetings might need to have a different professional there at them. Okay? So you could say, we're going to hold some family meetings. We're going to hold one with our accountant. We're going to hold one with this lawyer. We're going to hold one with, I don't know, the preacher. Right? Who else needs to be here? We don't know. So we really want to think about what else do we need to discuss? What do we need to get in line? And who needs to be at these meetings with us? And we want to talk about ownership transfer options. How are we transferring ownership? And how are we transferring management decisions? Okay, so ownership of the farm, who owns it currently at that time, and who it's passing down to, but who is currently managing it and making decisions, because that does not have to be the same person. Next, expectations and timelines. Is somebody thinking that because Daddy's having this conversation that he's passing the farm over tomorrow? No. Okay? So be upfront about what your timeline is. Hey, I'm going to meet with a lawyer next week, and I'm hoping to, write up some papers on this. I'm hoping to, get a will together. I don't have one, or something like that. right? So just sharing those timelines also kind of alleviates some of that pressure from the next generation to be like, well, what's going on? What? And again, any kind of agreements or future plans, get those in writing. Get those in writing. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. All right. I know y'all probably have questions, and I want you to ask me those individually, because everything I discuss with you is always 100% confidential. So I don't want you to ask me questions in front of all these people, because that's your farm, and that's your family, and that's your business that we need to discuss. And everybody's situation is different. So I really want to talk about this one-on-one with y'all. That's what I do literally every day. Sit down at kitchen tables. We're at the extension office, so we can meet wherever you want to. Let me know. And now we're going to take a quick break so we can transfer some microphones. And we are going to welcome Brent McKay and Jonathan Burns. So they are going to come and share. And again, that disclaimer again, they are not being paid, so thank you for their time. And again, they're not here to sell you anything. They are here to educate you based on their professional expertise. So I'd like to welcome them up here, and we'll get some microphones transferred over, and we'll get this screen shared so that the folks in Coffee County can actually see them. Hey, do you want to get that, and I'll just turn the microphone?
Take that one too. Oh, yeah. Is it okay if I move it over a touch? He said there was an audio video. Is that okay? That'd be great if you don't mind. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you, too.